Project Hospital is a game I had never heard of until last night. I thought it was new, turns out it's been out since 2018, with some expansions released in 2020. Wow, I'm behind the 8 ball here, but I'm someone who really enjoyed 2 Point Hospital to the point where I would need to admit myself into the addiction clinic in the literal game. Is Project Hospital as good? Project Hospital has a lot of strengths and a lot more weaknesses. It dares you to try to figure out how the game works. First, the strengths. The art style of the game is really cool. I like how the items and characters look almost like they belong in a poster you would see in a hospital. Also, it's very realistic. Every disease is a real disease. Every department is a real department. The realism is staggering. And when you click on a patient, you see their full range of symptoms and diagnoses, all from the real world. But all of these things are also huge weaknesses. Coming from 2 Point Hospital, which had a great tutorial/campaign system with a gentle learning curve that allowed you to learn what to do gradually and easily, Project Hospital confused the fuck out of me right away. It feels like they went with realism first, game second, whereas 2 Point Hospital went with game first, realism second. And after playing Project Hospital for a few hours, I definitely think 2 Point Hospital had the right idea. Even in the tutorial I got stuck. Like, how do you get stuck in a tutorial? Just looking at the hospital is confusing. The rooms are cramped and full of stuff. It's impossible to tell what you're looking at, especially when you're just starting. 2 Point Hospital, on the other hand, I never had an issue. So maybe the rooms in Project Hospital are more realistic, but again, maybe too realistic. Oh, and look at these textures. I thought this game was in beta or something because the textures are so low res. Then I saw it was released 4 years ago. Come on, Oxymoron. And patient cards have a ton of info, but I have no idea what to do with it. In the tutorial I did, but playing the actual game it got very confusing. It should be very clear, and maybe in an objective window that pops up. This lady needed new diagnostic rooms, I think, but looking at her patient card, it took me quite a while to figure out which rooms she needed. I had to mouse over her symptoms and look at the tooltip, I think. Overall, the tutorial did a terrible job of teaching me the game, and their campaign progression made me stop wanting to learn. And their building system is way too detailed and complex and confusing. Thank God for their prefab system, or else I would have stopped playing right away. To create a room, you have to drag it out, then you have to physically add walls, and then physically add a floor, and then there are something like 15 objects you must add to the room for it to be workable, some of which need other objects to be placed on, but you have to figure out which ones. Again, thank God for prefabs. I thought 2 Point Hospital was tedious, making me add extra objects to a room to increase room prestige, but this is ridiculous. 2 Point Hospital does this a lot better. It has an order of operations for every room that automatically happens. You drag out the room, walls and floor are automatically added, and then it automatically selects the default door for you to place. Then it automatically selects the objects that you must place until you're done with all the must-haves, and then you can add extra things if you want. And as you add extra things, the room prestige rating goes up and up, and you understand what the room prestige rating means pretty intuitively. I couldn't tell you if rooms affect doctors in Project Hospital. I have no idea. I was lost in a mess of options. Then there isn't a hire staff screen. You have to switch to management mode, then click on little pop-ups so you can add staff. And in the tutorial, I couldn't, and I have no idea why. I still don't. Maybe there's a higher staff screen that I just couldn't find. Like, a window with tabs on top that I could easily switch between. Even just accurate and useful tooltips for why the things I'm trying to do won't work would have been immensely helpful. I think the menus that Project Hospital did include would have been a lot better had there been better tooltips or had things been more clearly labeled. Something else that would have improved the tutorial would be a little voiceover. I would read the card up top, then try to remember what it said as I searched the screen for what it was telling me, and by the time I saw the tiny arrow, I forgot what I was looking for. In addition to that, lock me into a procedure. It took my own trial and error to figure out. First, click a department, which puts you into that department's mode. Then everything you build will be for that department. If that small info was made more clear, I would have gotten a lot farther. Then, after the tutorial confused the hell out of me, I started the campaign. And I got a massive 3-story hospital. The tutorial didn't even tell me how to switch between floors. I didn't know hospitals could have multiple floors in this game. And then, when it started, I had nothing to do. I just watched the hospital. It said I was supposed to get the hospital out of debt, but how? I don't know. I opened the budget menu and it said nothing. I put it on ultra fast and sure it was kind of fun to watch for a minute, but again, I had no idea what to do. This is more of Oxymoron Games shooting themselves in the foot. Yes, they already have my money, but the learning curve might as well have been a flat wall. Start me on a small hospital. Give me objectives. I later discovered that sandbox mode was maybe a better choice for me to start, and I had to restart no less than 5 times before I finally understood what I was supposed to do, and even more so, how I was supposed to do it. Because I would make a waiting room in a doctor's office, and the doctor's office would say that it didn't have a waiting room. But I just made one! Was it because I didn't have a little check-in thing? An info screen? What was I doing wrong? And this could be because I'm not very familiar with how a real hospital runs, but I eventually figured out myself that there were different icons for different departments at the bottom of the screen. I had to click on the emergency department, which changed into emergency department mode. And then it showed me all the different types of rooms that were needed. Then I had to click where it said rooms and it would send me to the room section. Then I figured out each department needed their own waiting room. And I had the ability to click where it said waiting room and drag over a waiting room I had already built, and it would change it to a waiting room for the department I had newly selected. Get it? All this stuff makes way more sense now that I did the trial and error, but still, it made me not want to try. There's a much better way to implement this system. The way it was laid out was just very confusing. Yes, I can look at individual patients and see their symptoms and their diagnosis and stuff like that, which seemed like fun in theory, but in practice, also confusing. And I didn't even need to look at individuals, doctors just took care of it anyway. But again, I'm not uninterested in a realistic hospital simulator, but this is a simulator in search of a good tutorial, because I was stuck for so long wondering why rooms didn't work, why I couldn't hire staff, why the bathroom was grayed out. The instructions said things like, X department has to be within reach. But what does within reach mean? It's right next door. It's connected. It should have said, you have to classify this waiting room as an emergency department waiting room. Then I would have had something to go on. And I can see this being fun for some people. I had some fun with it for a little bit after I figured out what I was doing. But then I was just kind of waiting. There was no reason to build more rooms, and patients weren't using the rooms I had built. And even in the campaign where the full hospital was built, it was so big I was instantly lost. Yes, I eventually found out that you can click on different departments and you can see they're color-coded, but after I figured out where everything was, I was just waiting. How do I fire someone? I don't know. Are some employees not being used? I don't know. Why can't I build this room? I don't know. 2 Point Hospital does a much better job of gamifying a hospital. It's easy to understand. Patients wait in the hallways. They need to sit. If they have to stand, they get antsy. Doctors diagnose patients, then need more diagnostic rooms. When they're treated, if you don't have the room, you need that too. Patients are hungry, thirsty, need entertainment. It's easy to see if doctors are tired, hungry. It starts you off with a very small hospital so you can learn with the game. So I think the only things I like about this game are the potential that it could be fun because I like simulations and the graphic style, but it totally bungles the execution. The screen is too busy, the tutorials are too confusing, the menus don't make sense, and the progression is too much too soon. I could see Project Hospital being a very good game if the 2 Point Hospital people drove over to the Czech Republic and gave it a makeover with easy to understand menus, robust tutorials, and a revamp of the learning curve. Because all that stuff really turned me off from a game that looked really cool in the trailer, but they didn't, so it wasn't. But I'm just one man. It has positive reviews on Steam and people saying it's very addictive, so maybe you'll want to put the work in to really get it, but it turned me off. I want to like this game, but even after I finished this review, I tried again just to see if I could get into it, and right as I was getting into it, I get a message I don't understand. This woman can't be diagnosed because there's no doctors with some skill. Then I have to go into her patient card, and it says no doctors have the skill of differential diagnosis. But as far as I know, the only way to hire doctors is to click on them in their doctor's offices. So how do I add a new doctor? How do I subtract a doctor? How do I look for new doctors? Do I have to build a whole new room to add a new doctor? This is the issue. The more I try to get into it, the more it fights me, and I'm tired of fighting. Thanks for watching Dan Man. Be sure to Dan spread this video so more people know not to waste their hard-earned $22.85 on the base game and all of its expansions. And be sure to leave a like if this was informative and subscribe to see more. Thanks.